I can't believe I'm actually writing this down. It's been a few weeks, but the memory of that day is still etched into my mind like a nightmare I can't escape. You see, I'm just a regular student, trying to get through high school like everyone else. But that day, that terrifying day, everything changed. It started off like any other school day. I was sitting in math class, zoning out as the teacher droned on about equations and formulas. And then, suddenly, the intercom crackled to life. The principal's voice came on, shaky and urgent, telling us that the school was on lockdown. My heart started racing, and I exchanged worried glances with my classmates. We huddled in the corner of the classroom, lights turned off, blinds drawn. The teacher tried to keep us calm, but I could see the fear in her eyes too. We had practiced lockdown drills before, but this felt different. Something was off. And then we heard it, distant shouts and the sound of heavy footsteps. My stomach dropped. The reality hit me like a ton of bricks. Those were gunshots. The fear in the room was palpable, and I could feel my pulse throbbing in my ears. We were just kids, trapped in a classroom, while danger lurked outside. Time seemed to stretch on forever. We stayed huddled in silence, praying that the lockdown would end soon and that everyone would be okay. The intercom stayed silent, no updates, no information. All we had were our racing thoughts and the sounds of chaos outside. Then came a loud bang on the classroom door, and we all jumped. My heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. Someone was trying to get in. My mind raced. Was it a teacher? Was it one of the gunmen? The fear was paralyzing. The door handle rattled violently, and my breath caught in my throat. And then, relief flooded over me as the door swung open. It was a teacher from another classroom, trying to get as many students to safety as possible. We quickly joined the group, moving through the school in a tense and hurried silence. As we made our way to the designated safe area, we passed by shattered windows and the remnants of chaos. The school was supposed to be a safe place, but now it felt like a war zone. We finally reached the safe area, and I saw the faces of other students, scared, confused, and trying to hold it together. We waited there for what felt like an eternity, not knowing what was happening outside those walls. The minutes dragged on, and all we could do was hope and pray that the danger was over. Eventually, we heard sirens approaching, and then the sound of more footsteps, but this time, they were different. They were calm, controlled. The police arrived, and the lockdown was lifted. We were ushered out of the building, past police officers with serious expressions, past the shattered glass and bullet holes. The reality of what had just happened hit me like a ton of bricks. Men with guns had been outside our school, and we had been mere feet away from danger. That day changed me. It changed all of us. It shattered our sense of security, our belief that schools were safe havens. It was a harsh reminder that danger could be anywhere, even in the places we least expected it. And as I walked away from the school that day, I couldn't shake the feeling that the nightmare wasn't over, that it would haunt me for a long time to come. I can still feel my heart pounding when I think about that day. I was just a teacher, you know? Just trying to educate these kids and make a difference. But that day, everything changed, and it felt like my worst fears were coming true. It started like any other day, just a regular school morning. The students were all in their seats. I was up front, teaching my heart out. But then, the intercom crackled to life, and the principal's voice came on. Lockdown procedures. My stomach dropped, and I had to swallow hard before I could even speak. We all knew what that meant. Danger was outside those classroom walls. I rushed to lock the door and turned off the lights. The classroom fell silent, and I could see the fear in my students' eyes. They were just kids, and they shouldn't have to go through something like this. But here we were, huddled together in the corner, waiting for updates, waiting for any information on what was happening. We could hear shouting in the hallways, loud and frantic. And then, the sound of footsteps running past the door. It was like the whole world had turned upside down in an instant. My heart was racing, and I felt a sick sense of dread settle in my stomach. What was happening out there? Were the students safe? But then, the atmosphere inside the room changed. I could see it in their eyes. Some of the students were different. Their eyes were wild, and they were whispering to each other, casting glances my way. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Some of them had weapons, makeshift ones, but weapons nonetheless. My mind was racing, trying to process what was happening. These were my students, my responsibility, and now they were armed and acting completely out of control. The fear that had settled in my stomach earlier turned into a full-blown panic. I didn't know what to do, how to protect them from each other. And then, one of them snapped. He lunged at another student, and before I knew it, chaos erupted in that room. They were fighting, shouting, and I was in the middle of it, trying to break it up. It was like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I was shouting, trying to get them to stop, but it was like they couldn't hear me. The sounds of their screams and the crashing of desks and chairs were deafening. I felt completely helpless, like I had lost all control of the situation. The other students were cowering in the corner, tears streaming down their faces. I wanted to protect them, to shield them from the violence unfolding in front of them. But I was just one person, and these students had lost all reason. Finally, I managed to separate them, to get them away from each other. But the room was a mess, and the atmosphere was heavy with tension and fear. We were all shaken, traumatized by what had just happened. Hours later, when the lockdown was lifted and the police had arrived, I was still in shock. I couldn't believe what I had witnessed, my students, my kids, turning on each other like that. It was a nightmare, a living nightmare that I couldn't escape from. That day changed me. It changed the way I looked at my students, the way I looked at the world. I saw firsthand the darkness that could take hold of people, the violence that could erupt in even the most ordinary of places. It's a memory that still haunts me, that keeps me up at night. I wish I could say that things went back to normal after that the students recovered and we all moved on. But the truth is, that day left a scar on all of us, a reminder that even in a place of learning and safety, darkness can still find its way in. And it's a nightmare I'll never forget. Listen up, because what I'm about to tell you is not some made-up tale. It happened to me, and it's the stuff of my worst nightmares. So, picture this, a regular school day. I'm just a student, trying to make it through the classes, counting down the minutes until I can go home. But then, out of nowhere, the intercom blares to life. It's the principal, and his voice is shaky. He's telling us to lock the doors, turn off the lights, and stay quiet. A lockdown. My heart's in my throat as I scramble to do what he says. This isn't a drill, this is real. The classroom goes silent. All we can hear is the sound of our own breathing. The teacher is trying to keep us calm, but I can see the worry in her eyes. We all exchange anxious glances, wondering what's going on outside those walls. Then, I hear it. Faint at first, but unmistakable. Gunshots. My heart skips a beat, and my mind races. Gunshots? In our school? It's like something out of a nightmare. Everyone's eyes widen in terror, and we huddle in the corner, trying to make ourselves as small and inconspicuous as possible. The teacher's face is pale, and she's gripping the phone, waiting for updates. But the intercom stays silent. We're just sitting ducks, waiting for something, anything, to happen. And then, we hear shouting. Men's voices, angry and aggressive. My stomach churns as the reality sinks in. These men, they're armed, and they're out there. Time feels like it's crawling by. Minutes turn into hours as we sit there, trapped in that classroom. We don't know what's happening, who these men are, or why they're here. All we can do is stay quiet and pray that they don't come bursting through that door. And then, a loud bang on the door. My heart leaps into my throat, and I'm sure everyone else's is too. The teacher's eyes widen, and she places a trembling finger to her lips, motioning for us to stay quiet. We all hold our breath, waiting, listening. The door handle jiggles violently, as if someone's trying to force their way in. My mind is racing. Are they going to shoot through the door? Are they going to break in? It's like a scene from a horror movie, and I'm the helpless victim. But then, just as suddenly as it started, the banging stops. I let out a shaky breath, but the tension in the room is still thick enough to cut with a knife. We all exchange frightened glances, wondering if it's over, if we're safe. Hours pass, or maybe it's just minutes. Time seems to blur together in that dark, silent room. And then, finally, we hear it. Sirens. The distant wail of police sirens piercing through the air. Relief washes over us like a tidal wave, and tears prick at my eyes. Maybe we're going to be okay. Eventually, the intercom crackles to life again, and the principal's voice comes through. He tells us that the danger is over, that the men with guns have been taken care of. We can finally leave the classroom, but my legs feel like jelly as I stand up. As we exit the room, I see the aftermath. Shattered glass, bullet holes in the walls, the school that was once a safe haven now feels like a war zone. I'm walking through a nightmare made real, and I can't believe I've survived it. That day stays with me, a constant reminder that danger can strike anywhere, even in the places we should feel the safest. It's a nightmare that I hope none of us ever have to live through again. But the memory lingers, a chilling encounter that I'll never be able to forget.